right. Hey there. What's going on, everybody? Chris Franks with TexasWest Capital. As always, I've got Tillman and Andrew sitting in the wings waiting to jump on from Arch Public. Before we get going here, make sure you hit the like, hit the subscribe, hit the follow. Do me a favor, retweet the link here, guys, wherever you're watching from. You know, we simulcast here across YouTube and Instagram and Facebook and X and all these places. Do us a favor, help us get the word out there. Share the link, leave a comment. We'd love to hear from you guys. You know, hopefully by now you understand we'd love to hear from you guys. We really appreciate, the kind words and whatever. If you're dumb and you leave dumb comments and mean comments, well, I'm going to tell you guys, we're all like from that generation that we don't care. It doesn't, don't be silly, I guess. Anyway. We've got enough stuff to talk about today, guys, but there's definitely no lack of Bitcoin information coming out. We had Trump's Crypto Czar with his first what do you call it there? His little show, right? Yesterday. We're going to talk about that a bit. Standard Chartered's got a price prediction for Bitcoin. You guys have heard lots of other Bitcoin predictions here. Larry Fink been one of the more recent ones. MicroStrategy, I'll mention real quick here. They have earnings coming out today after hours. So if you believe that's going to be good, do well, and price is going to go up, you might want to get in before the end of the day. And if things go well and you gap up tomorrow, hey, there you go, right? But anyway, lots of stuff going on here. So let me bring up the guys here. What's going on, Mr. Tillman?
Hey guys.
Oh, man, see, I made the comment before the show when we were talking back there about how great Tillman looked and how kind of fuzzied out Andrew looked. And then they came on here and immediately it was flipped around. But Tillman's back again. He looks good. And look at him color coordinating as well. Not that Andrew's not. Andrew's all in black, Johnny Cash style, but it is what it is.
That's right. All of us can't dress like crypto degens. I have to step up the game every once in a while and take the hoodies off and, look like a normal person.
Well, at least we're not walking around in monkey suits like they were at NFT Week in 2022, associated with what was the big project back then? It was the NFTs, the monkey. What was it?
Board apes.
Board apes.
Whatever. Board Ape Yacht Club, whatever.
Board Ape Yacht Club. Yeah. There it is. It's been a while since we heard from those guys. But years ago, it was all the rage, so much so that it was cool to be seen in public in an ape suit. Like that was a real thing. Okay?
Eventually, the inflation will catch up and you'll get your money out. It just won't have the same buying power that it did back then. But
back then it had buying power. Now it's a pocket change, maybe, kind of.
Look at Michael Johnson bringing in the heat on the serious side. 40 billion inflows on the ETS. I like it.
We can't even be silly to start the show. He's already guys.
Our intro of Board Ape Yacht. I got another one. I sometimes laugh out loud with crypto publications just because of how poorly written they are. A lot of them have like grammatical errors and they make up words and all sorts of stuff. But one got me seriously this week. I read this headline, $1 million bet. And by the way, this is from the cryptobasic.com. $1 million bet. Expert day trader buys $1 million in XRP on the dip. And I'm going, I wonder who the expert day trader is that bought $1 million on the dip. It's Dave Portnoy.
You're kidding me. Wow. See, yeah. I'm telling you, you just have to have a following. If you have a following, it equates to you having some sort of
expert. You're an expert.
And
I laughed for 5 minutes. I almost spit my coffee out. I was waiting for the expert. I wanted to know who was going to change my mind on buying XRP. And
that wasn't it?
It was Dave.
Dave, listen, guys, listen. For those of y'all tuning in, if you don't know Dave is a gambler. That's what Dave did.
That's what
He's
he is.
not an expert day trader. Maybe he's an expert gambler. I don't know what that really means, but he's a gambler. Oh,
Yeah.
Lord have mercy. And this is why retail loses money, because they listen to nonsense like that.
Yeah.
Well, it's just it's just everybody's looking for readership and everybody's desperate for it in such a way that they just put false information out there to get you to get into the article. It's a colossal waste of time. And
Yeah.
it's friction in learning, and that's not a good thing, right?
Well, even I was on Scott's show this morning. Every Wednesday I show up the back half of the show for the charts, and we kind of talked about the same thing about how the big influencers kind of come on there, and if you're a retail trader, you think, oh well, they got a lot of followers, they must know what they're talking about, and
Well, they're good for one thing if you're buying meme coins, because that's just crowd control. You're just looking at how many people engagement, basically. But yeah, utility, especially in the blockchain space, in most cases, other than I would say Bitcoin's the simplest to understand, quite frankly. And the rest of them are, you've got to do serious studying just to get to the bottom of how their consensus mechanism works. Like, that's step one of about 100 steps that, before you can truly assess a set of rails, like a network, and assess it from a security perspective, from vulnerability, from transactional throughput perspective. Like, there's all sorts of things that matter. And as we've seen, I think XRP Ledger was down.
But I think that was a node thing. I think Scott mentioned that on his show this morning, because one of his team posted out there was down and all this, and people got really upset at him. But apparently it was a resetting of nodes or something that they do. It wasn't like it went down.
Well, here would be my point, though, that like it's a learning moment, right?
Yeah.
So Solana network, it goes down quite frequently. I don't know if you've ever experienced that, but I have personally. And then, you've used the Ethereum network, and it sometimes has gone down, and its prices from gas perspective have gone to insane rates and stuff. Then you talk about Bitcoin. It's been around the longest. It's never gone down, and it always works back to the equilibrium that is coded into it from from a fee perspective and from a time to transact perspective. So no matter how hard the network, tugs on it from a demand perspective, it's naturally balancing itself back to 10-minute transactional or block time periods. And the reward is the reward. So everybody knows what the reward is: level playing field. And that's one of the things, like, how can you build scalability on the back of Ethereum, on the back of Solana, on the back of all of these other networks, right? That when you have to really understand what your primary purpose is in building on them, because if you're trying to process stadium tickets at the gate, you better have one that settles quickly, and you better have maximum throughput, and you're going to sacrifice security to get that. But you don't really care, because you can swallow the cost of the loss of whatever security you do have to eat, and from a loss perspective will be far less than the amount of money you're spending manually processing that task right now. So the delta's still in your favor to innovate and to go forward with that innovation, but it's not always just like clean cut as it pertains to, I'm going to use Solana. There's a lot more deep dive that's needed until you assess whether it can be used for the task that you want it to be used for.
Yeah. And just as a disclaimer here, I guess, I do believe XRP is going to go higher. I do believe we're getting over $5 with it. I don't believe we're going to $100, folks. I don't see a world right now in which we get there.
Well, let me ask you some questions then, because this will be interesting, I think, for the viewers, because I have questions. Do you think it'll be included in the strategic reserve?
Oh man, you coming out with questions like that?
Because there's some really credible people on both sides that have basically said the exact opposite.
Yeah, I don't, again, Trump's, also doing that sovereign wealth fund. I think there's probably a bigger chance we could see it in the sovereign wealth fund, maybe than the reserve. I think that's probably a bigger chance. I mean, I can't say that it definitely won't be, in the reserve in some respect, but I think, again, with that sovereign wealth fund, we're probably looking at things like, I mean, Trump's not, kept it a secret that he's interested in, like putting TikTok in there. And that allows, with rules, we know it allows them to put companies, digital assets, so many
So the
different things.
long way around the answer is yes. You do think that it'll be included in some sort of government purchased reserve fund?
I think I really don't know for sure.
Andrew does. So you'll be in good company if
fund.
you'll be in good company. Andrew definitely thinks
I was under the impression that this podcast was called Beards and Bitcoin, not beards and bullshit. I thought it was beards and Bitcoin.
Wait, hold on. Let me change the title here real quick.
Yeah, change
Kids, turn off the podcast. It's not G-rated anymore.
No, I don't think XRP ends up in strategic reserve. I'd be shocked that it would be in some sovereign wealth fund, which makes absolutely zero sense. It's not going to end up in either of them because it's garbage. Sure, it goes to $5. Awesome. But it's not. If Scott Bessent and Howard Lutnick and David Sachs are stupid enough to add XRP and those Ripple guys to either of those things, we got much bigger problems than we think. And I think there's no.
But I'm not thinking. So here's the thing why I brought it up and why it's interesting is that I think we're watching the education of the politicians in front of our eyes. And I remember this education. Like, it's not lost on me that I went through the same education. I was a big XRP believer at one point. But, when you get to the nuts and bolts of how a network goes down for a time period, you realize that it's centralized. And so, if the government's going to pick a centralized system to use, I think they're just going to use their own system. I don't think they're going to anoint a third party as basically the new rulers. That doesn't make sense to me. And XRP, the way it's positioned, Ripple has 50 billion XRP locked up in escrow. So, they would be those new rulers if it was injected in. So I think it's a low probability that it will be included. But to Chris's point, I'm surprised it went as high as it did. I know the demand. I know the it has a very loyal following, an extremely tight knit group of followers. I will say that a lot of them, not all of them, because I was one of them at one point, but a lot of them are not very impressive as it pertains to how they can argue their case for XRP. But nonetheless, I think that everything is going to go up. The question in my mind is, does it get included just because we're on this educational curve and they just are going to bet on everything? They're just going to just throw money at the board and say, everything.
Well, take a look at Trump and his kids, their DeFi thing, right? They effectively have a fund already that's gathered assets. Zero XRP in that thing.
You're right, and I noticed that as well. And I also noticed some, there's only one company Trump could have been talking about.
They have Tron in there, and not
Listen,
XRP.
You know why they have Tron, in my opinion? Because Justin Sun is a great entrepreneur, and he's
money in
down. And listen, if he bought I don't know what the number was, but I think he paid like $3 million to have a lunch with Warren Buffett at one point. Well, who knows how much he gave to Trump's campaign?
Listen, he bought the banana on the wall and ate it, right?
He ate the banana.
Chris, we'll tell this story someday in the not too distant future. Tillman and I have had some back and forth with Mr. Justin Sun. We've been acquainted. We've had conversations. We know how Justin works. So
he's a very eccentric person.
Yeah.
But I will tell you this: he's got something very similar to Donald Trump in his veins. which is all gas and no brakes. It's
Yeah.
pedal to the metal.
You don't have to look very far for tea leaves. Can we please stop talking about XRP? Can we move on? Standard Chartered. What's going on, Standard Chartered, Chris?
Hey, real quick before we do that, let's get a little bit better one here, right? We talk about consistently about how people are scared to buy Bitcoin because it's $100,000 and oh my God, it's going to do some crazy. And then Tillman brings up the fact that XRP holders are very committed, but I think it's something that I've been talking about a lot, which is again it's the pricing, right? A lot of people have been holding XRP since it was a few pennies. And so you've had great upside. Or even
no, they bought it at $2. It went to a few pennies, and that's why they've been holding it. Okay.
But I've seen people that have been talking big time about it since it was back, when I bought it before I sold it.
Listen, before the lawsuit, there was a very compelling story that was being told. Especially
talking about XRP. We're still talking about it.
Especially when it's a
I
show
hate
about
both
all
of you
things
right
crypto.
Both of you. I hate you.
Okay, we'll skip it.
You guys realize we're just doing this to mess with Andrew this morning, right?
Goodness gracious.
I told him he put a post out on X this morning, a picture of his coffee, his little espresso, and out his window. I said, we need more of the outside of the window, less of the coffee. And he puts this reply with this guy with a big old huge thing.
I doubled down, baby. I doubled down. I was ready today. I'm ready.
I told you. So anyway, Standard Charter. Let's get with Standard Charter here. We'll pull this up here. So they're talking. This is the block here. Posted this, said that they're looking, Standard Charter saying 500,000 Bitcoin by 2028. So basically what they're saying is by the end of Trump's term, this is what they're expecting. And of course, in the article here, it goes through, they mention a lot of the tailwinds that we have, right? We got so much in the way of tailwinds. This is what I don't get. We still got people out here saying, oh my God, the top is in. And yet everything is tailwinds. There are no headwinds right now.
The top's in for people who are chasing the 100x.
Top's in for the people chasing the 100x of what?
Yeah, so you know how the crypto market's really divided. If you're chasing a 6x, the top's not in. If you're chasing a 10x, the top's probably in. This cycle, I don't think we're going to get to $1 million Bitcoin. Maybe next epoch. I don't know. But I think there's a division based upon how much money you're willing to commit and how much you currently have committed and where your basis is on that commitment, right? Because if you have none right now and you're looking at, okay, I'm going to put a chunk of money towards it. And let's say that chunk of money to you is $20,000. Well, you doubling that to 40,000, it doesn't get you out of bed in the morning. That's not, especially for if you know anything about the alternative coins in the market, right? And so what does the person that has 20 grand go do? Well, they go chase meme coins because you can wake up one day after spending 20 grand and have 400 grand in your account. And then what do? Hopefully they learn and they start to diversify into more stable, coins. But most people that are on the lower end of retail, Bitcoin, the bloom is off the rose for them. But if you're a hedge fund who needs to place $30 million into something and you need a 12% return and something's offering you a potential 6x, that's a totally different value proposition to a totally different audience, right? It's just who the buyer is.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, when we look at this, we can look at MicroStrategy, right? So MicroStrategy, this last weekend, surprise, surprise, didn't buy anything, right? And again, they do have their earnings call here after the market closes today, but they have bought 20.4 billion in Bitcoin in a 12-week period from November 11th to January 27th.
That's crazy.
What were they saying before they did that first purchase? What was it, like 10 billion over the next 3 years?
42 billion over the next 5 years or something, and they've done half of that in a 2-month period, 60 days.
Yeah.
Well, what that tells you is the appetite for banks to shovel money into their laps. Like banks are saying, Oh, you want 42 billion to buy Bitcoin? No problem. How quickly can we get it to you? Right? I mean, that's the story there, is that if you're going to borrow to buy Bitcoin, somebody somewhere, the banks have gotten very comfortable doing that, very comfortable. So, let's bring Standard Chartered and then banks lending capital to MicroStrategy together, right? So if over a 4-year period, which is a short amount of time, if you're a bank, by the way, 3-year period, 500,000, that's a 5x. Like that's serious dough, right? In the world of traditional finance, that's wild stuff. It's the reason why Larry Fink got very comfortable at, Bitcoin's going to 500, 600, 700K, right? That's a 7x for, his quote unquote most important clients, the folks that are putting huge amounts of money into IBIT. Which,
well, and this headline is just, to me, them trying to grab some attention. I mean, what balls does it take to say 500K when Larry started that? That was his low range. Give me something more juicy, somebody that has a big presence that's telling us that it's going to go to 1 million. Truthfully though, that's how expectations and market caps and human psychology plays a huge role in where price discovery lands. And if you continue to have, it reminds me of, I'm going to get some of the details wrong about this because I heard about it growing up as a kid, but Joe Jamail was this bigger than life lawyer in Texas. And at one point it was the Joe Jamail Field at Royal Memorial Stadium at University of Texas. And Joe had his claim to fame was he won the largest settlement or award in the history of court, in the history of legal battles. And his cut of it, I don't want to get the numbers wrong, but I want to say it was like 800 million or close to $1 billion. And it was because at the end of the day, the jury only heard one number and the associated to damages, and it was about the Exxon Valdez oil spill, and the number they heard was $10 billion, and that stuck in their head, and so they essentially never had a reference point other than that number to work off of in terms of a judgment. It's kind of the same thing with guys like Larry Fink. When I heard that, I was blown away for two reasons. That a traditional finance guy that literally will not take questions as he's walking outside of Davos to anyone. Like he is unaccessible by the world. And he's on public stages saying that an asset over the next 4 years is going to go up by 600%. That's that's unparalleled, right? I've never seen that in my life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, nobody gets on, on TV. When was the last time somebody got on TV and said, well, Google's going up 6x from here?
Yeah.
Microsoft or whatever. Facebook's going to go up, 7x from where we are today. No meaningful analyst that has any sort of reputation is making that claim. You couldn't find it anywhere, right?
My case is that this number is going to stick in people's head. This cycle is, I started out thinking we weren't going to get to 500,000. I'm starting to think we are going to get to 500,000.
I remember you saying that originally. Yes, I was going to bring it up. Look at you jumping in there, smoothing over that transition.
Listen, I'm aware of all of my claims, and I will be the first to admit when they were wrong, Chris. I do not dodge the bullets. I take them like the Matrix will give them to me,
Well, and the important thing is, regardless of what the opinions are, we trade what's given to us, right? I mean, that's the thing,
Information is imperfect. And you can get periods of time like during Joe Biden's presidency where information was so few and far between that you essentially, you could kind of plan the future because nothing changed very quickly. And then there's periods of time where we've seen over the last, how many days where things can change exceptionally quickly. And those become infinitely more opportunistic. Like you can make a lot of money during those times, but you're also going to take a lot more risk during those times. The volatility, it cuts both ways, especially if you're leveraging against the volatility.
Yeah, and if we're to be honest here, I mean, we talk a lot about the things that we're getting right because we're getting a lot right, right? I mean, the banks coming in this year and whatnot. Andrew was, bringing that up months ago. The ETFs and all this stuff, right? We got wrong this idea of just how important or how big a part of Trump's campaign that crypto Bitcoin, would become. Because you remember we started just like 2 months after his first little mention of it. And even then, when he showed up and spoke at Bitcoin Nashville, you guys were there. We were still kind of like, okay, maybe, but And then you're talking about how quick things can change. And I mean, look, boom, just like that, all of a sudden we went from a mention to a speech at the big Bitcoin conference, right? Which is still kind of, and then all of a sudden it is like this huge part of what he's doing, right? When we're talking about the sovereign wealth fund, we're talking about strategic reserve, we're talking about crypto czars, we're talking about Hester leading the SEC, digital thing. I mean, it's like, oh my God, it's everything that we wanted.
When was the last time that there was a presser for the crypto czar and talking about the United States being the world leader, the global leader is associated with crypto, and we're all working on it, and we are going to be the leader in AI and crypto. And then, by the way, the crypto czar goes on a bunch of TV shows afterwards and talks about the Bitcoin strategic reserve, talks about Bitcoin, talks about the sovereign wealth, talks about a bunch of things. Then on top of that, I think we're up to 20 states that have now introduced some sort of Bitcoin crypto strategic reserve legislation, right? So we're still moving at breakneck speed. Again, a reminder, the inauguration was on January 20th, folks. January 20th. It's February 5th, right? It's been, 15, what is that? 2.5 weeks or so? So it's the pace and speed that we're pushing through this stuff. So not only do we get a crypto czar presser, we get shows afterwards talking about Bitcoin and Bitcoin strategic reserve and sovereign wealth, and will Bitcoin be included in sovereign wealth? Yes, it could. President Trump, the first initiative he wants us to work on is a Bitcoin strategic reserve. All those things were said, right? And then on top of that, we end up with a stablecoin bill that just got introduced from Bill Haggerty, right? So we've got a stablecoin bill that's been introduced, a U.S. dollar focused stablecoin bill. It has been introduced at the federal level, right? Federal. So again, these are all things that are happening extremely quickly. And if only half of them happen, that is. Again, a month ago, we were in a world where, if you said crypto in a social media post, your bank was like, nope, we're not doing, your account's canceled. Go find another bank. That's the world that we lived in,
Well, it was just a couple of years ago that YouTube was doing all the crackdowns on crypto. In my show, my channel got shut off in the middle of a Friday show. And it was gone for 4 or 5 months.
I mean, well, that's understandable. Maybe that didn't have to do with crypto. I don't know. Maybe they heard the
first 2 purges.
Maybe they heard the lawnmowers in the background. They're like, listen, we don't know what's going on.
Hey, you know what? I'm going to go out there and mow my own lawn? Are you kidding me? No, man. I'm keeping America going, man. I'm helping small business owners.
Keep America mowing again,
There you go. Get America mowing again. There you go.
Yeah, I think it's funny to see the educational curve that all these people are on. You've got Donald Trump's son shilling Ethereum on social media yesterday. What I think is absolutely comical is how everyone's tiptoeing around one thing. who are we going to piss off and how big of a crowd is it? Because the Bitcoin maxis are all saying Bitcoin only, right? And all these other coins are vying for inclusion. And you're going to make a large portion of people unhappy any way you step. And so I think a lot of the time delay in moving forward with a reserve of some kind is the fact that there's still internal debate as it pertains to which coins are going to be included and should be included, and what's the criteria by which you judge that. Like, is it by market cap? Is it by length of operational uptime and operational uptime percentage? How do you do that, right? I think the place to start personally is that you should not include any coin that had pre-allocation. That's my personal clean. Well, it does. It only leaves Bitcoin there, and that's a hell of a place to start. And if things prove over time to be critically important to infrastructure that we build here in the United States, like Ethereum, if it integrates in some way and uses the smart contract technology to promote efficiency within our government, and there's some sort of strategic reserve that's acquired for that use purpose, great, right? If it's being used for something and you actually need it, perfect. But as a speculative hedge against inflation, there's only one winner, and it's Bitcoin. And it was fairly inequitably distributed from day one. No one got an unfair advantage. You're not picking a winner. If you're the government and you choose to hold that on your balance sheet, you're supporting a network that grew organically from block one to now, where we have basically 90+% of the supply that we'll ever have. It's done basically.
So I guess the real question then is, if we get this sovereign wealth fund, who should be in charge of it? I mean, obviously the clear answer is Nancy Pelosi, right? I mean, she is absolutely by far unabashedly the best trader in history, right?
That's a good question. Who should be in who should be in charge of it? That's a really good question.
All seriousness, but I mean,
you could have an AI that's in charge of it, and every time Jim Cramer makes a proclamation, it does the opposite, and that would be remarkably successful. Interesting. The thing with politics and stuff like this, it's the law of unintended consequences. Like, right? Like what happens when you do this? What are the consequences you haven't thought of? Because, oh, by the way, in politics, there's always a turnabout, right? At minimum, every 4 years, there's an adjustment of some sort. Depends on if that adjustment's big or small. For a few decades, we had small adjustments because there wasn't a whole lot of difference between Democrats and Republicans, right? We're currently living through the first 2 weeks of an enormous adjustment to the status quo. Enormous adjustment, principally because, Trump thinks they tried to put me in jail for forever, / they probably tried to kill me too, and I'm only going to be here for 4 years and then I can't run again. So damn the torpedoes. We're doing what I think we should do. And so, is there a turnabout to that in 4 years? Is there another version of it? I don't know. But point being is, and again, I made this point last week, Caitlin Long talks about the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve, and there needs to be pretty serious provisions in there associated with it can't be used as a bailout fund. Yeah. And that's an important point, meaning on the sovereign wealth side, there probably should be some meaningful provisions associated with that it can't be used for X, Y, and Z, because at some point somebody else is in charge. And what do they decide to do?
Listen, right now we have no idea how much gold is sitting in the Fort Knox vault, right? Mm-hmm. We got no idea. Mm-hmm. If we had a basket of cryptos or Bitcoin specifically in a strategic reserve, we could put lockup agreements. We could code it to where it couldn't be gotten to where it's literally locked up, and it locked up on 50-year periods, 100-year periods, whatever you want to do to ensure that it gets well beyond the greed of the current lifespan of the politicians, right? Where, they'd have to leave a letter to their great grandkids and say, here's the plan over the next 100 years. Yeah. So, if you do that, if you put something in there that technologically keeps it protected, then it's as simple as, everyone going to that address and seeing how much gold is in Fort Knox. Can you imagine the level of confidence that puts behind our wealth reserves, if you will, or whatever
Well,
you want to
I
call it?
can imagine the level of upsettedness that the normal cronies would have because of that. All of a sudden, they can't hide behind, "Oh yeah, sure, just trust me, bro." There's this much in there, but yeah, no, but I think I think you're right. I mean, as a country, if we say, "Hey, we've got XYZ, not XRP in wealth," I think you we as the people of this country, remember, I think people have forgotten, the government is supposed to be working for us, not the other way around. We're not supposed to be slaves to the government. The government is supposed to, handle these other parts of our overall, society, but in response to what we want, not what it wants to do. And I think we've kind of gotten out
It
of that.
goes to a deeper principle of like the collective wisdom of the multitude is better than any subset of that multitude, right?
Yeah.
We as a people possess more wisdom in ruling than any subset of ourselves that you could ever point to. The collective wisdom is much, much more.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and even Polymarket shows that now, right?
Exactly. More data equals stronger outputs. That's nature.
Whether we want to believe that we're smarter than the others or not. I mean, the reality of it is more data points, better data, and more actionable, I think. So yeah, I would say that. Now, Andrew, man, you've been posting some stuff up there on Twitter here lately, my man. What would you say over the last week or so is probably the most significant news that you've kind of posted on there?
I mean, listen, today, if you just go down the record of the past month associated with what's happening in our industry, it's breathtaking, right? It's breathtaking. It's SAB 121 rescinded, Real Ross freed, Larry Fink 500K to 700K. Trump launches a meme coin. We've forgotten about that already, right? In kind replacing cash create, very likely. We were on with Matt Haugen yesterday, and his point is we're probably underselling in kind because that can happen very easily and simply, and overvaluing, I don't know, something else I forgot. Gensler's gone. Crypto enforcement's been reassigned, right? So crypto's top enforcement lawyer in the SEC just got sent to the IT department yesterday. that actually happened.
That was the demotion, right?
Yeah, and so Coinbase legal challenges are now not challenged by the SEC. So they had a case, it's legal gets all weird, but they had a pending decision coming up for an interlocutory, or however you say it. And the SEC just didn't file their response. So that's going to pass. The SEC just said, yep, we're done doing these. 19 states with Bitcoin strategic reserve bills in process. The Treasury Secretary, the SEC, the Commerce Secretary, all pro-Bitcoin. Jerome Powell says banks are free to deal with crypto. David Sachs yesterday in all of his interviews. Senator Loomis has introduced the BSR bill. Senator Hagerty, stablecoin bill introduced. The vice president and multiple cabinet members all own Bitcoin. Executive order, sovereign wealth fund. And I'm probably missing about 10 of them, right?
Well, and then you have like the stuff that nobody wants to talk about. But I think I've gotten into the deep dive on the data side of it, and it's mind-boggling. Do you know how much Solana meme coin volume in trading has done over the last 24 hours?
I bet you tell us.
$19.19 billion in trading.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's a market that is literally a part of our ecosystem that is bigger than most markets out there that we don't even acknowledge. It's like the stepchild that, you know, the Cinderella story. Basically, it's unbelievable. This thing is growing like faster on all fronts than we could possibly imagine. And we were supposed to be down at the Gary Summit this week, but I couldn't. I got it. My kids made the state hockey tournament, so I'm here going to take them. But I was watching it, and they had an episode yesterday, or a panel yesterday. It was around sports and Bitcoin, and it started off pretty simple about some of the athletes taking Bitcoin as their salary and what it has done for them in terms of net benefit. But one of the panelists started to talk about, and they own an NIL firm, and they were talking about the possibilities of blockchain and what it's going to do for NIL capabilities, and that now athletes can brand themselves directly to the consumer, and not just the consumer that's within their geographical territory or their nation, to a worldwide base of consumers, and they can be paid in Bitcoin inside of this ecosystem that they control and they build. And the growth potential, if you look at like YouTube and you look at the social media, the experts, if you will, that have come out in all of these social media channels, and then you extrapolate what the potential value of e-commerce is going to be across social media networks that are controlled by athletes and influencers, it makes even what we're talking about on Wall Street look small. I mean, it could be trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars of top end growth, because it's good for everybody. The consumer wants a more intimate relationship with the influencer. The influencer wants a more intimate relationship with the consumer. And right now, there's a lot of intermediaries that keep that from happening, that this technology is just blowing through, is the point.
Yeah, there's just, it's, I mean, I know we focus on Bitcoin here and, to a broader, effect, digital, but the reality of it is this, I got to say, this is probably one of the more exciting times to be alive. When you look at Bitcoin and digital, currencies, and then you look at what finance is doing now, and then you look at, the average person's total, basically loss of trust in major media, mainstream media, and their reliance more on influencers, this more kind of
direct to consumer.
Do what?
Direct to consumer.
Yeah. I mean, you're looking at all this, and then you got AI on top of it. I mean, holy crap. I mean, we can sit here and we do try to figure out what things are going to look like in 10 years, but I don't think we can. I think it's going to be so just crazy different just in 10 years from now, because technology is exponential, right? And a lot of what we're talking about is technology.
Well, it heads towards the sci-fi, and some people believe singularity. Like it all morphs into a single organism at some point, like where everything talks to everything. Your heart's talking to your lungs, your brains, and it's all talking to the Internet of Things, and everything connected then becomes this living organism that is a network of the world and the data attached to it. And AI and quantum computing are the two main ingredients to that gumbo. And then you couple that with crypto and the ability for AI and smart contracts to, if you had an AI agent governing a smart contract to make sure that nothing nefarious took place, and that it had ability to step in and essentially be, the kill switch for the markets, the governor of that rule set, and you built that rule set, it would almost run unencumbered for eternity, like at no cost. Like, think about that, and think about where we've come from what it took to be a market maker, right? You could do that now with an AI agent and a few smart contracts. And that's where we're headed, and that's where everything's headed. And when you have things that are being connected to one another at the pace at which we're connecting things, the information flow that comes out of it, coupled with AI, just lets us connect things quicker. So you're right; it is completely exponential.
To me, it's you know, if I had to say what the two most important issues that have been dealt with so far this year, what will make the most impact in 2025, it's SAB 121 getting rescinded, because that was such a nefarious accounting rule that was set up to make crypto effectively toxic for the traditional financial rails. So it being removed, and then, you know, literally, I don't know, a week later, the chairman of the Federal Reserve talking about crypto and how banks are good to deal with crypto. They just, just got to make sure that they evaluate the risks, but they're good. Yeah, they can do that. That is going to be something that will, at least from Bitcoin's standpoint, probably Ethereum as well, throughout 2025, the scale at which banks will begin to, find themselves in a custody position with those assets will be, very productive to overall price, because you just have more and more people that will be feel good about owning the assets. And then on top of that, again, I think that the MicroStrategy story, not in and of itself, but the ways in which banks have gotten very comfortable financing, Bitcoin being brought to a balance sheet, that's going to continue happening across the corporate world. And it's going to happen more and more and more and more. So the playbook that Saylor has put together, being used by other companies, big and small, I think is going to be the other subset of happenings that will be a significant theme associated with Bitcoin at large. Those are just a couple of reasons why a guy like Larry Fink is comfortable saying 500 to 700K, because if three idiots on a podcast with beards can say, listen, the macro here is clear as day, I would imagine that, a demigod in finance is probably pretty good at figuring out the macro as well. And that's why he says that. So those two things, Bitwise calls the corporate movement in onboarding Bitcoin to their balance sheets a mega trend. And SAB 121 allows that the banking world to get involved. And, oh, by the way, it makes it easier for the world of corporates to do that with their banking relationship. So I think those two things are really going to be
it's the adoption curve that, all of the nuts, argue about as it pertains to the power law. You can say, what are the two factors you use for Bitcoin's price to go up? Well, adoption, wallets that hold more than $1,000, that is the primary driver that has the strongest correlation over the last 16 years of price movement. So then you ask, just to Andrew's point, like, what does this drive adoption or does this hinder adoption? Well, this is like adding, 15 new on-ramps to the Bitcoin highway. More traffic than ever is going to be coming on, because there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be hearing about Bitcoin and being introduced and educated about Bitcoin by their banks. Mm-hmm. That's a really good spot to be in for adoption. And, if you believe in those power law curves and you believe that adoption is going to go up because of the banks being able to hold it, it's kind of barring some black swan event, it's kind of inevitable. It's more people are going to get access, therefore the price is going to go up. That's kind of the nature of selling anything that that people desire and want. So yeah, I think I agree with Andrew. I think those are the two most meaningful things. I think as a byproduct of those integrations, some feature sets are going to be added to Bitcoin that haven't been added before, like yield. And I think that is going to, again, be a major driver in adoption. So yeah, we won the war. I think we're beyond the tipping point of critical mass. I don't think there's anybody out there that's thinking Bitcoin is going to die, which, every other cycle other than this one, that's ultimately what people are saying when the price starts to crash, is that it's over, that the ride is done.
Yeah, wasn't it Dan Moorhead? It was just an interview recently that said, every cycle before this, I'd always say, yeah, there's a chance it could go to zero. But at this point now, I don't think that's a possibility anymore.
Yeah.
And, speaking to what we were just talking about with banks, I mean, here's the latest here. New GOP leadership at FDIC has released 175 new documents related to its supervision of banks that engaged in or tried to engage in crypto-related activities. Basically, what it says is they were trying to be able to do so, and they kept getting rebuffed, and finally they just gave up. They were just it says these documents that we were releasing today show that results from these banks were almost universally met with resistance, ranging from repeated requests for further information to multi-month periods of silence as institutions waited for responses to directives from supervisors to pause, suspend, refrain from expanding all crypto or blockchain related activity. And so, I mean, but isn't that really the whole, the last administration across the board?
Yeah.
Crypto companies coming to the SEC and say, listen, okay, great. We understand you're very anti-crypto. Okay, talk to us. Help us understand what's legal, what's not legal, because we're intending on doing this, but we want to do it legally. And what did Gary Gensler say? Nah, here's what's going to happen. You go ahead and do it, and then we'll sue you, and we'll let the courts decide. I mean, are you kidding me?
Well,
Yeah.
it's no leadership. Like that, if you don't understand something, you can't govern it, right? And I think that people are so afraid of the rules being broken with new technology. But you know what? That's the nature of new technology. That's the same with the internet. Every new technology. And so when is the government going to learn that the more you artificially repress something, the more the demand grows? Like you can't tell a nation when a whole world is developing on crypto, and we all as crypto people understand that the cat's out of the bag. The government can resist as much as they want, but you can't kill crypto. It's literally unkillable, and so if you understand that premise, you're kind of going, well, then you're just hurting us by delaying us embracing it, right? If it's not going to go away, then let's innovate on it. And I think that they've repressed that so much that's why I think we're seeing the exuberance that we're seeing right now, and the potential upside change from upward trajectory of Bitcoin from 200 grand to 250 to really the regime change and the wind change. It'd be like flying in an airplane with a headwind of 85 miles an hour, and then all of a sudden the tailwind of 85 miles an hour. It's going to cut a lot of time off your trip. I mean, a whole lot of time. And we're seeing that, and everything's moving faster than we could have ever hoped for. So yeah, it's like you said, great time to be alive. Who knows what's next? Nobody can predict it because it's moving too quick.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious for Andrew's take on this. So, I mean, I think we're all in agreement. We really all expect ETFs, the Bitcoin ETFs, to do even better this year than they did last year. Do you have any kind of, Andrew, maybe prediction, thoughts on where these Bitcoins might end up, or any of them in particular there by the end of the year?
Well, the Bitcoin ETFs will do, they'll inflows will be greater than 50 billion, between 50 billion and 100 billion this year, just on the Bitcoin ETFs. That says nothing about the Ethereum ETFs, and that says nothing about additional crypto ETFs, which will be approved. Yeah. Solana will probably be first. Something like Doge will probably be next. There's XRP stuff out there. So there's going to be additional crypto assets that get ETFs, and there'll be inflows that find their way to those products. But Bitcoin ETFs, I mean, you're absolutely, again, I think the net new inflows, let's call them, was like 38 to 40 billion last year. And everybody thought the net new inflows were going to be 5 billion, 5 to 10. And so it was, 6 to 8x what that number was. So we're gonna do 50 to 100 billion just on the Bitcoin side, and now it's a question of what are the allocations going to be, downstream associated with other assets, Ethereum and the like. My guess is that we'll see 10 billion plus allocated to Ethereum, and then a smattering of billions associated with the others. The interesting thing is that the ETF, the crypto ETF ecosystem is going to grow really fast. And what do I mean by that? I mean that we'll see additional Bitcoin ETFs that are derivatives of just a spot Bitcoin ETF, like a 2x Bitcoin ETF or a 2x short or 2x long. There's a ETF that got approved, and it basically says you're going to only benefit to like 15% to the upside, but you're not going to benefit to the downside up to like 50%. It's basically an arbitrage ETF associated with Bitcoin from Calamus, I believe it was. So that type of stuff, everything in between is going to happen there. And then you're going to see, conglomerate ETFs that are both Bitcoin and Ethereum, ETFs that are, just crypto grab bag of stuff. So the question then becomes, what is the totality of inflows? Last year, it was just Bitcoin ETF. What's the totality of inflows associated with the crypto ecosystem and ETFs? And my guess is, that's going to approach, in total of probably $100 billion this year.
Well, and that's not even including the futures markets or the options markets, like, Bitcoin Friday futures. A new product was just launched by the CME, and I was sending it to one of our developers because he's really interested in this stuff. And the CME just came out with essentially a smaller, it's a 1/50th of a Bitcoin. So a smaller denomination, so more people, more approachable to more people. And it closes the position every Friday. So it's just a 1 week futures product, essentially. And it's a very unique product. I've been reading about it, but I never even saw this on the horizon until the CME launched it. And I think, to Andrew's point, like, there's going to be more products that are going to be launched than we could probably anticipate this year. And that's just more liquidity, more money that's going to come in.
So I guess we can all kind of agree then that the repealing of the SAB 121 is probably the most significant thing.
Yeah.
More than the the strategic Bitcoin reserve, even more than FASB, because that allows. Yeah, well, not even just that, but that, and then Jerome Powell coming out, like we talked about, and he actually came out and said, "Hey, listen, the banks can handle it." So it's basically his saying, "Hey, I don't have no problem with it. Go ahead, guys," because that allows for the banks to get involved, right? I mean, that's like a green light. And all of a sudden, all these products that we were talking about last year, as banks got involved, and these creations of futures products and all these things, all of a sudden have this much easier route now, which means more opportunity for traders, right, and investors.
I think it's very, very soon that we see a bank advertising nationally that they will custody Bitcoin and they will pay you a interest rate on that custody. I think we will see that within 3 months. That would be my bet.
Whoa! Holy smokes! 3 months.
I think so.
3 months. Even put. I wasn't expecting him to put a time on there. I'm like, you guys heard it here first. 3 months. He says. Within 3 months.
It's an arms race at this point.
Yeah.
And when you have an arm, when you made a post that the gun's been fired, right? And I said, the starting gun. It's a race now, and if you're someone who's been working on this for the last 7 years, like a lot of people have, and you have regulatory clarity now, it's about first to market mover advantage. And I think that's, I think it could be sooner than 3 months, but I think we will see one in 3 months.
Okay, so now you guys heard that here too. Now, sooner than 3 months, he says.
Yeah,
But really,
2 months and 29 days sooner.
I mean, but you laid it out there, and it makes sense. You know, again, these guys have been working on this for a while now. All they're waiting for is, you know, regulatory to say, okay, you can do it. And it's like, okay, now who can get out there first and who can get out there? You know, because if you're not first, you're last, right? I mean, Ricky Bobby reference and all, but nonetheless, when it comes to these type of things, I mean, really, it is what it is. You want to be the first one out there doing this because you're going to be just picking up scraps if you're coming in later.
Well, it's a huge net for retail onboarding. Like, look at how successful the Gemini credit card has been, and now how many companies have started to advertise that they have a crypto rewards credit card. You know, it's inevitable. Once you give them the authority and the ability to go create and market products to the masses, that's their bread and butter. That's exactly what they're going to focus on.
Yeah, man. Great conversation as always, guys. We're up here, we're an hour now, so I guess we'll get ready to kind of wind it down. I know everybody's going to miss Tillman's pretty face, but you know, we got to do it, guys. We got to keep you coming back for more next week. As always, though, you know, again, the goal here is not to do anything other really than to entertain you and give you, you know, thoughts from experienced professionals that have been in various areas of financial markets and TradFi markets and all this kind of stuff for, you know, 30 years. That's what we're here to do, guys, you know, and, you know, we're going to be wrong sometimes. We're probably going to be wrong, right a lot more times, or at least so far we are. We'll knock on some wood here, keep doing that. But at the end of the day, the idea is to get you thinking outside of maybe whatever local kind of thought process you have. Because at the end of the day, the goal is to, you know, make your life better, not just for you, but for your, you know, your loved ones, your family and all that. And I guess Andrew just got tired of hearing that, so he just took off.
Well, and I'll add to something that you just said. The beauty of anything in life is the complexity in it. Like, you don't want one-sided experiences. And crypto is like a diamond. There's a lot of facets to it. And there's so much that can be learned from so many different people. Like, I'm shocked. I've been in the industry a long, long time, over a decade. And I get on podcasts and spaces all the time, and I learn things every single day from people that are focused on it from a different angle and a different perspective and a different, you know, they're solving the problems that are in front of them to solve with this massive disruptor called Bitcoin or called crypto or called blockchain. And that's the beauty of it, is that it is applicable to pretty much every walk of life, every business, every venture that you could ever, you know, want to be a part of. Blockchain is going to be a part of that, whether you're just holding Bitcoin on your balance sheet or whether you're running your entire inventory on the back of blockchain technology. Something is going to be in your very near future impacting you for the better, and it's going to be because of this industry. So I think for the purpose of me being here is to share my tiny little sliver or facet of things that I've learned over the time, and to learn from you guys. That's why we want more engagement from the listeners, more topics to talk about. And if you have a topic that you want to talk about that we don't have expertise in, we know people that we can bring on the show as guests. We know
a lot of people.
We can dig in.
People.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you a group that I joined. I was a miner for a long time, and I love mining. It's how I fell in love with the technology. So I joined a group called the Mining Mafia on X, and it's been incredible. They know, I know a lot more than most of them about actual mining, but when it comes to mining stocks, they know infinitely more than me. And so you tune in and you hear people talking about these stocks that are holding a lot of Bitcoin and correlating why the multiplier for those public.
I'm the last man standing, I guess. But anyway, Andrew had to jump off for another meeting. It looks like Tillman's off here now. But you guys get what he was saying. We appreciate you guys showing up as always. Remember, the only thing you control is how much you lose. So, whatever you're doing there, whether it's in trading or in life, work on your risk management. Make sure that it's legit there. Tillman came back to say goodbye to y'all here. There he goes. He wasn't going to leave you guys hanging.
Yeah, I didn't want to leave you with my unfinished thought. I'll end it quickly. But measuring the difference between why MicroStrategy is trading at a large multiplier against their Bitcoin holdings versus some of these mining stocks not trading it at a large multiplier. And that's a really interesting question, and they've got a lot of knowledge about that. So look, we want to expand the knowledge base about crypto, specifically Bitcoin. So please engage with us, and anything that that you want to talk about, we'll bring you on stage and have a conversation with you if you're inclined to do that. So.
Yeah, definitely 100% here, guys. So, leave a comment under, under the show, and let us know, what kind of thoughts or things you'd like to hear about. And like I said, we can talk about it. And if we're not really well versed on it, we can find somebody. We no doubt in our Rolodexes, because we're old enough to know what a Rolodex is. Not that we necessarily have one anymore, but we've got huge contacts, guys. We have tons of contacts, and I'm sure they would be more than happy to jump on here, because these people we know do it for the same reason that we do it, and that's just to share information, learn, and just kind of increase the overall knowledge. Because guess what, guys? The more you know, the better off you're going to be, right?
Yep.
All right. So anyway, that'll do it, guys. As always, have a great week. Be safe out there whether you're trading or investing. Don't get too caught up on social media, emotional responses and posts and things that happen, especially if it happens in relation to price either jumping up or dropping down suddenly, because as Tillman here so graciously warned you guys about a little bit over a month ago, every Sunday we see a drop into Monday until further notice. And then Monday we get those rallies. And so minimally, you guys should be prepared for that in case it does happen, right? So
yeah, we actually got a nugget of information that I'll pass on. It's too good not to. We can end the show with this, but we were on a show yesterday with some very knowledgeable people as it pertains to the ETF space. And the question was asked, when do the ETFs get settled, right? Tillman, if I buy an ETF, when does that Bitcoin on chain get purchased? And the cutoff is 2 p.m. every day.
2 p.m. Eastern, right?
2 p.m. Eastern. So market activity in the spot market between 2 p.m. and the following morning at 9:30 p.m. is going to dictate what the demand is at 9:30 when all those previous ETFs. So what I'm saying is that the ETFs provide, like I've been saying for a long time, this kind of rising tide at 9:30 every morning, where you're getting purchases that were made yesterday and through the overnight getting lumped in at the morning, because that's when the market opens. And so, that's why we're getting bumps on Monday morning, because there's demand that's not even associated with Monday morning that's coming in on Monday morning.
Well, there you go. All right, guys. That'll do it. Enjoyed having you guys here as always. Enjoyed everybody coming in and watching and commenting and everything else. We'll be back next Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. I'm sorry, 11 a.m. Central, 12 p.m. Eastern. And of course, I'll be back on Friday with my Friday show where we do charts and whatnot. Look at the different markets at, again, same time, 11 a.m. Central, 12 p.m. Eastern. Make sure you guys are following these guys. Well, here's one of them anyway. Texas OL61 there on Twitter and X, whatever you want to call it. And Andrew is AP_Abacus. And I'm, of course, TXWest Capital. So we'd love to hear from y'all. Y'all stay safe out there, and we will see you next week. Take care, everybody.
See ya.